Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to Wednesday Morning Coffee Break on this February the 1st. Boy, where did January go? That was one quick month, wasn't it? I want to thank you for joining me this morning for Wednesday Morning Coffee Break. I pray you're having a good morning. You got your coffee? Thank you for joining me. I want to remind you to share this devotion with others. I would appreciate that very much. I'm always humbled that you join me and that you spend a few minutes with me as we look at things that God tells us. This morning, I have a question. I have questions a lot of the time, so this morning I have one, and I have one that I've asked myself, and you most likely have asked yourself. And that question is, does God hear our prayers? Does God hear our prayers? How many times have you prayed, have I prayed, and cried out to the Lord and felt that he didn't hear me? Didn't hear us. Well, the Bible gives us assurance that God does hear our prayers. The psalmist said in Psalm 145, verse 18, "The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth." Peter said in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 12, "For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayer." And Paul tells us in Philippians 4, verse 6, to present your request to God. Now, why would Paul tell us that if he didn't know that God hears our prayers, that he hears us? You may ask them, why doesn't he answer us? Well, first, are we praying in his will? Are we praying in his will? Jesus told his disciples in Matthew chapter 6 to pray like this: "Our Father in heaven, hallowed or holy be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And then are we praying with confidence? In 1 John chapter 5, beginning in verse 14, "And this is the confidence that we have toward him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us in whatever we ask, we know that we have the request that we have asked of him." So secondly, are we praying with confidence? Are we praying in God's will? Perhaps not everything we pray for is with confidence in his truth or according to his will. And not all answers are what we think we need or what we want. God answers prayers for his will and for his glory. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't love us. That doesn't mean he doesn't want the best for us. He does. And his will is the best for us. But first and foremost, even if it doesn't match up to our will, it matches up to his. If you look in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, we see the story of Paul, who was given a thorn in the flesh. Now, we don't know what that thorn was, but we know that it made Paul weak, and it was bothersome to him. And he prayed 3 times that God would remove that thorn. God, take it away. Well, God didn't remove it. And I think the Bible tells us why. It wasn't God's will. Instead, God's response to Paul's prayer was this: my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. In other words, God could use this thorn that Paul had now. God could use it for Paul to live with for his glory. And if you look at Paul's response, it was, so now I'm glad to boast about my weakness, so that the power of Christ can work through me. You see, Paul accepted the thorn so that Christ could work through him and be glorified through his suffering. Paul then said, that's why I take pleasure in my weakness and in the insults and the hardships and the persecutions and the troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. And then there's Jesus. Jesus prayed 3 times that he would not have to endure the cross. Matthew chapter 26, the Bible said that Jesus fell on his face and he prayed, saying, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. 3 times Jesus pleaded in agony. And 3 times he concluded his prayer with, Father, your will be done. Jesus knew what was going to happen to him. He didn't want it to. But he accepted it as God's will for his life. Jesus knew that his Father would be glorified through his suffering and ultimate death, burial, and resurrection. We don't always understand God's will. The Bible's very clear in explaining to us that his ways are higher than ours, and that his thoughts are greater than ours. You see, God sees the big picture, we don't. It's hard to say. It's not about me. It's about you, God. My life is about you. You see, God does answer our prayers. He does hear us. But he answers our prayers for our good and for his glory. Through faith in his sovereignty, his supremacy, and his divine will, we pray for his will and not for ours. Paul tells us in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20. I love this verse. It says, now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power that is at work within us. There is somebody greater than us, and it's God. There's somebody that loves us more than anything in the world, and it's God. And it's someone who wants the best for our lives, and it's God. May we learn to pray in confidence, in truth, and in God's will. God bless you. Thank you for joining me for Wednesday morning coffee break. Hope you have a great Wednesday, a great rest of the week. Hope to see you next Wednesday. Bye now. God bless you.